Hello, we are live. And I'm live with one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Mallory Erickson. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for helping me learn LinkedIn Lives for the first time. You are absolutely the person I want to be here with. So I'm so happy to be here.
You got it. I am checking to make sure that we are live on all the things. If you hear us, if you see us, please comment. Please let us know. Yes, we're happening now. I just got told.
Okay, great.
We are live and happening. This is actually my first LinkedIn Live back. I mean, I don't even know if I've done one all this year.
Wow. Okay, here we go.
It's official. It's happening. Mallory, okay, obviously you are one of my BFFs in this fundraising space. I don't know what I would do without you.
Ditto.
And so I'm very excited for everything that you're working on, the whole revamp of Power Partners. You've poured so much love into this like revamp that you're working on. We met. Oh, yay. Hi, Lauren. Good to see you. Lauren's here. Fabulous. Also, everybody, while you're joining, if you have questions for Mallory, she's great at riffing, and that's essentially what I'm doing with her. So if you have questions, just let us know. But she has spent so much time in like what I like to call the intersection of amazing partnerships, fundraising mindset work, thought leadership, and like executive coaching, like all combined into one of like brilliance is what you do. But she's also the host of What the Fundraising, an incredible podcast. And we're just going to dive into a little bit about what Power Partners is and why you should work with Mallory, because I mean, who wouldn't want to work with Mallory? But I want to ask you, just for those that maybe do not know you, how did you get started in fundraising? I think that can be such like a heavy word for a lot of people. And then what led you then to create this incredible Power Partners formula you have?
Yeah, it's so funny. Actually, you just saying that made me think that for so many years when I was fundraising, I didn't really identify as a fundraiser. Like I had a very complicated relationship with that word. But now, in retrospect, I was fundraising for 13 years. I've spent my career inside the nonprofit sector. And, like with every job, when you're in small to mid-sized nonprofits, fundraising comes with the territory. And then the part of my role that was occupied by fundraising got bigger and bigger as I found myself first in a managing director role and then an executive director role. And I really hated fundraising. And when I say that, people are always like, ooh, she said it, but I did. I was really uncomfortable. I felt like there was this secret to fundraising that everybody understood but me, that there were all these like unwritten rules that I didn't know how to play, didn't know how to follow. And it constantly felt like I was like out of like integrity and alignment with like who I was. And so I got to this moment where I was like, I don't think I can like reconcile these things, this like fundraising thing and who I am. And so I got to a moment where I was like, maybe I need to leave the nonprofit sector. And I started to look into moving on to the CSR corporate side of things, but then had this like accidental combination of life experiences where I got executive coach certified, trained in habit and behavior design, trained in design thinking while I was frontline fundraising. And those frameworks just completely shifted how I showed up as a fundraiser. And I started to realize that there were ways to fundraise that felt good, that felt like we were in alignment with you, that shifted the sort of typical power dynamics that we feel in the fundraiser funder relationship, that were not rooted in like scarcity and fear and a chronic stress state. And it didn't happen like overnight, definitely. But once I realized like kind of the combination of tools that brought me out of that, I just wanted to like tell everyone. And I didn't start off with like, oh, I'm going to start a business and like train people on this. I was just like, hey, friends, fundraisers, did you know that if you use these tools, fundraising starts to feel different? And then I just did that so much, like shared, during the pandemic in particular, when people were really paralyzed around fundraising. And then there was so much requests for like me to go deeper or offer this work one-on-one that inspired me creating the course, because I was home with no childcare in the pandemic and still frontline fundraising, and requests to work with me one-on-one were just flooding in. And I was like, I can't meet this need by myself. And so I created Power Partners as a way to help other fundraisers like infuse this framework together.
It still blows my mind that you just started doing what you're doing like yesterday.
I know
And
in
she's
some
taking
ways
over the world, everyone.
in some ways I don't remember another reality. Like I don't like this is so everything like that I like eat and breathe and everything.
Yeah.
And in other ways I'm like, yeah, this just happened like 3 years ago, really.
How do you think, like, you talking about you having those specific trainings, it really makes me think a lot about we go to college to get a degree, to do something, and then when we get into the actual use case, like, of said thing that we're supposed to be doing, like, digital marketing really didn't exist when I was graduating from college, so, like, all of it's been learned. But for, like, the nonprofit organization management degrees that are out there, does it even, like, touch on the mindset work and human behavior at all?
You know, I can't speak to what's like in universities now because truly, when I was graduating college, there weren't even the level of nonprofit courses that there are today. I mean, there were nonprofit like management graduate programs, but I majored in I majored in sociology and political science, looking at the intersection of education and social change. So I feel like my undergraduate degree was just like, how do you think about and analyze problems in society? And then I was like, okay, I'm going to apply that in some way. And then I got my master's in education. And, but you know, the difference between that type of like intellectual study versus things like getting executive coach certified or being trained in habit and behavior design is it's not like an intellectual process. It's a practical application process. So
Yeah.
like you're really taught and coached. And to get executive coach certified, you know, lots of people call themselves coaches. But to actually be certified as an executive coach, you go through, you know, 500 hours of monitored coaching, like making sure that you're really trained on how to move somebody through transformation. And so I think, and there's no way a course like an intellectual course could ever do that because in a course setting, you're learning like why it's important. It's like the difference between, you know, reading a self-help book and getting one-on-one coached, right? Like
Right.
those just can't be the same thing, even if they're talking about some of the same concepts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super interesting. I was just thinking about, like, are we launched into a space, like, not totally set up for success?
Totally. And I mean, I think the thing with fundraising is like, I didn't even hear any conversation for 13 years about the fact that it is an uncomfortable practice. Like,
Yeah.
I thought it was just me. I mean, I've said this to you before, but like, I was sure I was a bad fundraiser because I was like, there's no way that good fundraisers feel this way. And
Yeah.
so there was no even, and, you know, I think like the rise in conversations around like mental health and like all of that over the last few years have helped open up this space. But I still think we talk about a lot of these concepts in super blanket ways. We're like, yeah, our sector's really burnt out. We need more vacations, you know? And it's like burnout is like something that's happening to our nervous system. Like if we don't
Yeah.
actually heal our nervous system and have tools to do that and tools to understand when we're dysregulated, like no, all the vacation in the world is going to like
Right.
disappear the
You
moment
have
we're
to go
back.
back to that job, and then you're
Yeah.
just gonna repeat the cycle. So, like, which leads me really to the next question, really, which I think is like this overarching is like, why is it so uncomfortable for most fundraisers to be doing, which is so interesting. Like, you are hired for a role, knowing that you're gonna be doing this thing, and you like apply for it, right? And you want to be hired, but then you get into the position and then you're like sitting in this weird feeling like, what is that?
Yeah. Okay. It's so funny. A few people have like laughed recently when I've said like most fundraisers are uncomfortable fundraising, and people have like laughed as if that's like a ridiculous thing. But it's actually not. It's totally normal. And part of it is because we don't really have a conversation about what happens in day-to-day fundraising. So when people want to be fundraisers, you know, they're usually people with like, you know, high EQs, they great interpersonal skills, love building relationships, care a tremendous amount about the mission that they're supporting. So like they want to fundraise for this organization. But the actual act of fundraising on a daily basis involves constant rejection,
Mhm.
consistent like getting ghosted, often like banging your head against the wall with your board of directors, like negotiation, like really like high stakes negotiations that involve really uncomfortable power dynamics, like, and metrics of success that you're being held to without enough support to actually achieve them. And then no consistent behavioral reinforcement on the things you're doing well, right? It's like we measure our success by what happens, for most organizations on like December 31st.
Yeah.
And then we have like 5 minutes of celebration. And then it's January 1. We're back at 0. And it's like we do it all over again. And we haven't created inside our sector ways of like celebrating the actions of fundraisers, not just the outcomes,
Yes.
recognizing like and reflecting on our own growth and progress. And so we
So
always
true.
feel behind.
Yeah. Well, how does that, I just think about like salespeople. So if we
Mm-hmm.
flip it for the for-profit world, like a lot of those things I would think would be similar. Like I remember I had a very sales heavy job when I was living in New York, and I was going down the list in Salesforce, right? And trying to set up meetings. And it's very similar. And I definitely felt rejected all the time. But I feel like you're right. Like the celebrations are different. And for some reason, like it didn't feel like as daunting. Yeah, Gloria's like, we do it all over again every year.
Yeah.
Totally. Like what's your thoughts on what is like the coaching and the teaching of maybe setting up internal office and organization practices to make that not the case?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'll do two things. I'll answer the sales thing to like a little bit of it, because that's
Yeah.
a really big like question. And then I'll answer that too. I mean, one thing, so in behavioral science, one of the concepts that's super important is this idea of shine. And this is from Dr. BJ Fogg's work, but this idea of small reinforcement of behavior, like taking the actual behaviors and celebration of the behaviors that you're trying to take. So not linked to the outcome. So like, and it doesn't always have to be, you can show shine to other people, but it's also showing shine to yourself. Like, great job, Mallory. You click send on that email. It was really scary. Like you did it, and just like that quick moment, like we're constantly, saying negative things to ourselves, and we don't think we deserve to celebrate the actions that we took because we're like, well, that's my job. I should have just been able to do it. But it's like, it was actually really scary. Like it was a scary thing to do, to like close your eyes and click send on that ask or to finish that grant. And so the more like we can, both for ourselves, but also in our teams, celebrate the actions that we're taking that are the leading indicators around our fundraising results, the better. So yes, like that's something I talk about a lot in the program. I talk about it a lot with organizations, like how you set up habit reinforcing structures. And a big part of that is shine. And then, the thing about sales, so some of my hypotheses here is that there's a few reasons why sales feels really different. One is that you have a product, and so you're a little bit more disconnected from the rejection. It's like, oh, they don't want that water bottle. Whereas like in fundraising, we've been taught so much, like build a relationship. And we've been told, this is very anti-power partners. But because I think in power partners, we actually try to create some distance around the personalization, and we look for alignment instead of like, do you like me enough to give you your money, because that's how I was taught to fundraise, like build a relationship, and then they'll give you money. So, okay. So when I hear build a relationship, it's like, get that person to like me, right? Be charming enough, or care, or like, dote on them enough, or placate them enough so that they like me. Because if they like me, they're going to give me money. And so then when they don't like you, or when they don't want to invest in your organization, it feels super, super personal. And so we really like depersonalize that in Power Partners in a big way with the way we structure kind of like alignment and funder mapping and things like that. I think that's one reason it feels really different. I think the other reason it feels different is that there's definitely a lot more celebration. Like there's less of a scarcity mindset. So there's more celebration around the wins in sales and less about, like, think about our businesses, right? Like when we, sell a product or we do a webinar and we talk about, oh, I had a 4% conversion rate, right? We're like, that was so good. Like 4% conversion rate, you're killing it, and then here we are in the nonprofit sector, like you have a 48% retention rate, you're the worst.
Right.
right? And so we're always in the nonprofit sector talking about what we don't have, what we're not doing, what the gap
Totally.
is, the scarcity. And that is just something that's really different in the
Yeah.
for-profit sector in a big way. And I think there are a lot of reasons why it feels different, but those are like two big ones.
Oh, so good. I think something that you also talk about a lot, and I know I talk about this too, is like when I'm thinking about all the times that I've donated, right? I am being offered the opportunity to do something amazing. Like, if you always are considering it to be an ask of just a money transaction, then that's totally the opposite way of looking at it. And so it's
Yes.
like you are giving somebody the opportunity to do something feel good, and they can choose to take it or not. I have never made a donation unless it's like somebody doing like a 5K run and sponsoring like for their nonprofit that they've selected where I'm giving money because it's for somebody. Otherwise, it's like I really like the cause. I really like the mission. It doesn't really have anything to do with, no offense, but like the person sitting on the other side of the computer screen, which it shouldn't be for anyways, because we can move around jobs all the time. And
Mhm.
I hope like for everybody that's watching this right now, yes, I love this, Brian. Positive reinforcement to oneself that builds our confidence. Do it again. Yes, like I recently shared with everybody yesterday that I hit 25,000 podcast downloads over the weekend. And when I first saw the email, I got excited and then immediately was like, oh, but that's actually like low compared to, right? And then I go into comparison mentality. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to share it. And then I was like, but wait a second. That's actually like a really amazing accomplishment. Like, I do want to share it. And so our brain goes through these like comparison mentalities and like stresses us out. And it's like, no, I am going to go ahead and like share this and be confident about it. And I think when I remember doing a mastermind and just the energy and mentality switch of having that confidence shows up in meetings and Zoom calls and your emails and whatever. And then it just like the person I was working with in the mastermind, when her energy switched, she's like, I just got a $25,000 check in the mail. And I was like, yep.
Yep.
Like,
I mean, what you're saying is so important. And I think it's important to know like the job of our brains are to keep our body safe. Okay. So, like biologically, our brain is intended to keep our body safe. So, that piece of you that moves right from 25,000 is big to like, maybe I shouldn't share it, is like a protection
yeah,
piece, right? It's like, oh, don't share it, Dana, because what if one person somewhere doesn't think that's a big deal? Then you're vulnerable and you're at risk. Just play small, be invisible, don't make waves, right? All these things.
totally.
And I would say for like women identifying people, particularly biologically, our bodies and brains have been trained for harmony, right? Was our role in society for so long. Create harmony.
Oh
Don't
my God.
rock the
That's my
boat.
word of the year, Mallory.
Well, look, intentional harmony is one thing, but like what it has meant for most of us is this like people pleasing, right? Like I
Yeah.
can never rock the boat. What if someone's mad at me? What if someone doesn't like that? And so much of the like instant reactions that we get to fundraising, don't do that, don't send that, I did something wrong, that's why they haven't responded, is really like a protection mechanism. And a lot of what we do inside Power Partners in phase 1 or in phase 0 in particular is start to understand like, it's totally normal to get those messages from your brain. It does not mean they are true. And this is how you actually like overcome them, because that part of your brain is not the part of your brain you want driving your fundraising decisions and activities. It doesn't mean that you have to hate that part of you or you have to like criticize that part of you, but to hear it and be like, okay, that's not
Right.
the mode I want to make this next decision from.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, y'all, are you just like mind blown right now? Mind blown. I mean, if you want, this is like a snippet of the goodness that is Mallory Erickson. And she's put literally so much love into Power Partners in this reboot. Can you share with people? This is kind of like a mini taste, lunch and learn, like to have you in their corner and to go through this program. You have a free masterclass coming up on August 17th. Can you share a little bit more about what you're going to be talking about in there?
Yeah. So in the masterclass, I actually go through the entire Power Partners blueprint. So I talk about like the three biggest myths that I think keep fundraisers stuck in doing fundraising the old school way, what I was taught, what most of the fundraisers who have come to me have been taught. So I bust those myths and I sort of show you a different way of addressing each of those problems. And then we go through the entire Power Partners blueprint. So you see sort of how I take this like alignment first fundraising methodology and how you build that into creating what I call a funder map, which is helps you and your organization figure out like what is your lowest hanging fruit in terms of like what are the verticals, what are the types of fundraising inside your organization that you are ready to double down on right now, that you have the assets for, that you have the skills for. And I think right now, especially in this economic climate, everybody is like, oh my gosh, how am I going to hit my end of year goals? What do I focus on? There's so much like shiny object syndrome in this sector around like, I need to do this and this and this. And I talk about this on the webinar, like we build a bunch of half-built bridges, you know? And so what Power Partners is really designed for is like helping you analyze and understand what's the first full bridge you need to build, and then how do you build it? Like, what is the process of building it? Identifying the right funders for your organization, getting in front, what does it take to actually get in front of those funders and get them to respond to your emails? And then what does it look like to actually build that partnership, close that, partnership. And it's all built around this intersection of fundraising strategy mixed with executive coaching tools and habit and behavior design. Because for me, that's what really makes things applicable. Like I don't want you to leave the webinar and just be like, okay, that's a nice idea, right. And then you're going to go back to your organization and you're going to be like, wait, this feels scary or unfamiliar, or, I don't know how to do this thing. And so having executive coaching tools that I actually go through on the webinar itself allow you to get over some of the resistance that, especially this time of year with like Giving Tuesday and end of year and just like the overwhelm that comes with this time of year, those tools are like so critical.
And I love too that you just add little like surprise and delight things too, where you'll have like Zoom calls where everybody's just writing thank you notes. Like that's like an awesome thing just to do like an activity together. So honestly, like if you have not already signed up, I did put a link in, it's at least in LinkedIn. I don't know if it's on the YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, I will add it there too. But on LinkedIn, there's a link for the free masterclass that you can sign up for it on the 17th. What time is it, Mallory?
It is at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern.
Cool. So you can register and sign up there. I will also share this in my emails. If you're on my email list, if you're not, you should be. Go to my website. But the link will be here. And Mallory, I always love chatting with you, and you're literally a gem in the sector. And it's Becky.
Oh,
hi Becky. Oh, she's the best. Yeah, Mallory is your guide. I think no one should do any work alone. I'm actually leaving to go to, this is just the magic what happens. Like real quick of why these types of like community cohorts are so important. I joined a mastermind in 2021. There was like 14 or 15 of us. We were all female entrepreneurs. Mallory knows the story. And I invested 5 figures in it. Like it was a really big, scary investment. Now, since there's a group of 5 of us that have continued to stay in touch, we do monthly calls together, still supporting each other on our businesses. We've gone in person once in Oregon last year, and then once or twice. But then one of them is getting married this weekend, and we're going to her wedding. It's a small wedding, like 50 people. We were all invited because we're still so close. And we are spending one of the days, not the bride, but we're spending one of the days doing business workshopping. And no one should go through, in my opinion, any point of their career alone. And so to find these pockets of people who are like-minded, who want to move forward and figure this stuff out together is so powerful. It makes you feel not alone in it. So thank you for building what you've built. Everybody, don't walk, run to her stuff. Like seriously. Yes. Megan is here. All the good people. I love it. She's just a gem. So if you have any questions for Mallory, I know she's very active on LinkedIn too. So please follow and connect with her here. Mallory, any final stuff that you want to say?
No, just thank you for having me. And I think, that I've learned too, like I was so isolated as an executive director and a fundraiser. And I've done such a better job in my business, like building relationships with you and Becky and, the
Yeah.
ecosystem. And that it's just so helpful to it's not just about people. I think like it's about like the right people who
Yes.
want to do things in the same way, with the same values, with the same mentality as you. And I think that's what people really find inside Power Partners. Like there's tons of like free fundraising groups, but but not everybody's trying to fundraise in an alignment first way. Not everybody's trying to build like real partnerships, and sort of play the long game. And so I think it is really helpful to figure out where your right community, where your right pocket is, where you're going to feel that level of like support.
Yeah. And I will say, like, joining that mastermind a couple years ago, I remember I saw, I think it was 55 or 60% increase in revenue year over year. So the stuff pays off.
Yeah.
Like, I know you share the testimonials all the time, but thank you.
Thank
you so
you
much
for having me. I love you.
Love you. Thanks everybody for joining.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Have a good Wednesday.